Okay, I'm going to tell you what this incredible mind-blowing puzzle game is right away, and it's easily my favorite puzzle game of the last few years, but you have to promise me when I tell you, you don't click away immediately. Because the thing is you've heard of this game, and you've maybe even played it and you probably think it sucks, but just give me a chance and I promise it's going to blow you away. Okay, are you ready? The game is Sudoku. But wait, it's not like that crummy Sudoku that you find in the back of the in-flight magazine that's half filled out and you're using your crummy little pen to fill out the numbers. Oh no, we're talking about Sudokus with no numbers given. We're talking about Sudokus with fog of war. We're talking about Sudokus that have buttons, have traps, have all kinds of crazy video gamey things, teleporters. And yes, you are literally just punching in numbers, but somehow all of these things work, and I'm going to show you how. Sudoku has been around for decades, but relatively recently, it's got a lot more interesting. Some of the most talented puzzle designers in the world have been creating all kinds of innovative and new mechanics for Sudoku that just completely revolutionizes the game. So how do we go from like traditional Sudokus that look like this one to these crazy things that just look like mazes and have nothing to do with numbers? Well, to start, forget doing it on paper. The web app for doing these is fantastic. It also has like more options than your average modern AAA game. Now, why would you need the option for a drawing tool so that you can draw shapes and paths on your puzzle? Ooh, just you wait, we'll get to that. As a foundation, if you don't know how basic Sudoku works, it's like this. You have a 9x9 grid that has 9 boxes, and you have to place the numbers 1 to 9 so that each number appears exactly once in every row, every column, and every box. To make this easier to explain while we progress through the levels, I've made this cute little Sudoku. This is just a 4x4, so obviously there's only 4 rows and columns, 4 boxes, and we only need to do the numbers 1 to 4. So how do we start on a puzzle like this? Well, we have 2 2s, and that actually gives us a lot of information right away. Like for example, we know we need a 2 down here, but the 2 is already used up in this column. So straight away, we know the first 2 must go here. Same down the bottom here. We know that the 2 can't go there. So already we have all of our 2s. What about our 3? Well, now we know that our 3 must go there. And now that the 3 is there, we know that the 1 has to go there, because we need 1, 2, 3, 4 in every box. And now if we look across on this 1, we know that the 1 must be there, which means the 4 must be there, which means the 3 must be there. And so you can see how just very quickly we end up solving the whole puzzle. Easy, right? And if you blow this up to a 9x9 Sudoku, that's kind of the Sudoku we all know and, to be real, mostly hate. This example puzzle is super easy, but once you hit 9x9, you get much more advanced strategies, which some of them have like great names, like you have X-wings, Y-wings, Fistomefel's square. These are much more complicated techniques that we're not going to go into in this video, but just know that like essentially what you're doing is creating restrictions, like this can't be here, so maybe it's one of these numbers. And so while us gamers have been playing incredible puzzle games like Portal, like Baba Is You, The Witness, Snakebird, all kinds of amazing stuff, Sudoku itself has been going through like a quiet renaissance. Because you see, designers have been coming up with new rules and new mechanics for Sudoku that completely change the game. In this one, we only have a single number given, and so like, how are we supposed to do anything with that? Well, obviously we have these bright pink lines, and those bright pink lines have a few rules of their own. So in these, they have to contain numbers that are sequential, but they could be in any order. So this little short line here, if this was a 3, then this would have to either be a 4 or a 2. So it doesn't really matter, but as long as they are sequential. So if we look at these lines, this 3-cell long line, because we only have the numbers 1 to 4, we know that there's only 2 options here. The numbers here have to either be 1, 2, and 3, or 2, 3, and 4. Either way, we know that the numbers 2 and 3 have to be there. And the thing is we already have a 2 and it looks across at this line. So now we know that we must have a 2 here. And so we have another 3-cell line here. And again, now we have a new 2 that looks down. So we now know a 2 needs to be there. Now, again, we know that we have to have a 3 in these somewhere. So in this one, the 3 could be in either of these squares, because again, it can be in any order. And a 3 must be in any of these squares. But if you imagine the 3 is here, then all of a sudden, neither of these 3s work, right? And so what are we going to do? Like, the only numbers we could have there would be 1, 2, and 4. So they wouldn't be sequential. So through the act of elimination there, we know that the 3 has to be there. Now we can go back to our little small line. And again, it just has to be 2 numbers next to each other, but the 2 is seen from everywhere here. So it can't be a 2, it has to be 3 and 4. And 3 is already here. So now we know 3 and 4 must be here. Now we know that this is a 1, 2, 3. This is a 4. This is a 1. Where does the 2 go here? It must be there. Therefore, that must be a 3. That must be a 3. 1, 4, 1, 4. Done. And so you can see it really quickly, like, you start off with, if I just reset this here, you start off with almost nothing, and then slowly the restrictions kind of stack on each other. And all of a sudden it's like you're pulling a thread and the whole thing just comes together. Okay, let's look at one more puzzle before we hit the big time. And straight away you'll notice this puzzle has no digits given to start. And just a few years ago, this was unheard of. But now these kinds of puzzles are pretty commonplace. And I think that's amazing because there's just something so cool about starting with nothing and then eventually figuring out this puzzle. Now, of course, we don't have absolutely nothing. We have these circles. And so these circles are called counting circles. And so what they do is if we have a number in a circle, that tells us exactly how many other circles also have that number. So for example, if this was a 2, that's telling us there must be 2 circles with the number 2 in it. So we couldn't do this, for example, because now we have 3 circles with the number 2 in it. It has to be 2 2s, or if it was 3s, it would be 3 3s, etc. Of course, we still need 4 of every number in there. It's just the other 2s would have to live outside the circles. So if we get rid of all of that, how do we actually do this? Well, if we count up the number of circles, it turns out we have 9 circles. And so we need to fit like 1 1 or 2 2s or 3 3s, some combination of that into 9. So if we just ignore the grid for a moment and look at this little visualization, if we add up all of those possible combinations, that gets us to 10 values. And of course, we only have 9 circles. So the obvious and easy way to do this is if we just get rid of the 1, now all of a sudden we have 9 values left over and we can add 2 2s, 3 3s, 4 4s, and it all fits in perfectly. So flicking back to our puzzle, we now know that the circles have to have 2s, 3s, and 4s in it. So 1s can't be inside the circles. And so if we look at these boxes, where do the 1s go in these boxes? Well, they have to be outside the circles. So now if we look across here, this must be a 1, and this must be a 1. So we're off to a good start. But now what do we do with the other numbers? Well, we know that we need to put 4 4s in the grid, and we know that the circles have to have 4s. So every row, every column, every box has to have a 4 in a circle. And if we look at this bottom box here, there's only 1 circle. So the 4 has to go here. Now we can look up. 4 must go here because it's got to be in a circle. Look across, must be here. Look across, must be here. Now, how about the 3s? Well, we need 3 3s inside circles. Wherever the 3 is down here, it's not going to be in a circle. So it has to be in every other box. This is the only circle left here, so 3, look across here, 3, look across here, 3, and then perfectly that leaves these 2 leftover circles for 2 2s. So we've got 4 4s, 3 3s, and 2 2s inside the circles. And now to finish it up, we just switch back to regular Sudoku. So we just look for the missing digits. We're missing a 2 here, a 3 here, and a 2 here, and that's it. The puzzle is done. And I think it's just so satisfying starting off with no numbers on the grid and having to kind of step through a whole new set of logic to complete this puzzle. I just think it's brilliant. And I think the fact that someone figured this out is incredible. And also, just to give some context, this rule, this counting circles rule, this was only like invented / designed last year. So for Sudoku, a game that's been around for decades and decades, this whole idea of these circles, this is brand new. This has only just become a thing. And again, these are just the mini versions of these puzzles. Once they become big 9x9 ones, it gets a lot more complicated and take a lot longer than a couple of minutes to figure out, but it's just so much easier to explain it this way. And the thing is designers have just kept on coming up with more and more of like these interesting creative rules that constrain where the numbers can go. And it has just absolutely changed Sudoku. You get this astounding variety of like complex yet elegant and sometimes very beautiful puzzles. As an aside, if you're curious how these are made, there is an app called Sudoku Maker. It's incredible how well this thing works. You can pick from heaps of these different constraints and put them together and set up the starting conditions, and then there's an auto solver that helps you check whether there's any kind of like, if there's only one unique solution and if there's any conflicts, and then you have a button that immediately publishes it to the web, and then of course you still need to go through the whole step of playtesting it. This is just like making video games. You gotta do the playtesting phase and everything, but wow, it's just a very elegant system. The interface is super intuitive. It gives a lot of like game editors, I mean, it puts them to shame, frankly. And finally, we get to the puzzles that made me want to make this video in the first place. They really build on everything we've seen so far, but just take it up to a whole new level. These are the Rat Run puzzles by designer Marty Sears. Now, you can see this is obviously an entirely different style of Sudoku again, but there's not just one, there's 18 of them at the time of this video, and they even have lore and a storyline that goes through it. So let's have a look at one of these crazy puzzles. So the goal of these puzzles is to get Finks the rat to the cupcake through the maze. And this is where our line drawing tool comes in handy, because we need to plot a path that gets you there. But of course, you're not just going to draw a short line like that directly to the cupcake and be like, well, that's it, the puzzle is over. Because obviously we're also going to complete a Sudoku while figuring out this path. Now there's a lot going on this maze. We're not going to complete the whole thing because it's quite a beast, but you might look at this and be like, how is this possible? How does it make sense? How would you know which way the line would have to go? How would this get us any numbers at all? So let's have a look at that. First thing is we have these traps. Now, the way the traps work is if the trap is on, then the path can't go through the trap. How do we know if the trap is on? Well, it all depends on what number is on the lightning bolt. If the number is 1, 2, 3, or 4, then the trap is off and the path can go straight through it. But on the other hand, if the number is 5 or above, then this whole area is electrified and the path can no longer go through it and we would need to go a different way. Now, the other rule with the traps is the numbers inside each set of traps has to add up to the same number. So if you look down here, we have these quite big traps. Now we don't know exactly what the numbers might be or in what order they might be, but the very smallest that this trap could be would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in whatever order. And so that altogether would add up to 15, right? Now through a step I'm going to kind of skip, we actually learned that it has to be 16 or higher because of these set of 3 traps here. So let's look at this small trap. How could we make the numbers inside it add up to 16? Well, it could be 9 and 7 or 9 and 8. That's the only combination of numbers because we just don't have much room to move in such a small trap. And that means no matter what the number is here, it's either going to be 7, 8 or 9. This trap is on. It is electrified, which means the path is going to go like this. So already we start to get our first bit of information about which way the path will go. But now that we have some of the path, we have all this new information because the path must go through there, which means this trap must be off, which means that has to be either 1, 2, 3, or 4. And now the next rule is that numbers next to each other on the path can only have a difference of 2 or less. So let's just say, for example, say the path was going to go that way, and this was a 5. That means these cells, either left or right of it, would have to either be 3, 4, 6, or 7. It couldn't be like a 9 because now that's a difference of 4 and it has to be a difference of 2 or less. So let me just delete that. How does that help us? Well, we know this has to add up to at least 16, right? If this was a 1, then the highest number this cell could be is a 3, and the highest value this cell could be would be a 5, because again we have to maintain a maximum difference of 2, and that's only a 9. So that's not going to work. Even if we go as high as a 3, and then the highest we can go from there is 3, 5, 7, that's 15, and so that's not going to work either. It has to be 16 or more. So through this, we've already learnt that we need a 4 here. And now we know that these have to be either 2, 3, 5, or 7. And so now we can see, we start to learn what the numbers are along the path. And of course, what these numbers are going to dictate which way the path goes from there. So they help each other. The path helps decide the numbers and the numbers helps direct the path. And again, just progressively, step by step, one little bit of logic unlocks a whole heap of new information, which leads to the next step of logic. And you're kind of switching between these different rules and then like regular Sudoku rules. And eventually you end up with a completed puzzle that has every single thing filled in, including a path for the rat to reach the cupcake. And the fact that someone has managed to build this in Sudoku, this incredible puzzle that just kind of like emerges and evolves and changes as you complete it, is mind-blowing to me. Like, there is incredible design work at play here, and no matter how many game developers or gamers I talk to, no one has heard of these things. They're just like, oh, Sudoku, I know that from the newspaper, and that's it. And that's kind of why I wanted to make this video, because there is incredible design and frankly an incredible game here. There are 18 of these right now, and these are beefy puzzles. Like, I would say on average they'll take you between 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on how fast you are. And there's 18 of them. That means there's like a 20+ hour puzzle game that is amazing by a world-class designer for free right now, and no one knows about it. It's absolutely crazy to me. Now, these are big, beefy puzzles, so they're maybe not the ones to start with if you've never played any Sudoku before. I'm going to link a few of the very easy puzzles down in the description if you'd want to give it a go. Otherwise, the other option is there is an amazing YouTube channel called Cracking the Cryptic that is literally Mark and Simon, who are incredible puzzle solvers, working through these puzzles, and it can be very fun watching kind of the logic emerge, and you will see how much they appreciate the design of these games as well.
Astonished, because that's classic Marty. It's total genius. Total genius.
The other good thing is if you give these puzzles a go and you're getting stuck, you can always like refer to the Cracking the Cryptic video and kind of see some like logical steps that you might have missed or new strategies. They are just so much fun to solve, and having that like backup for if you get really stuck can be quite nice. But the absolute genius of these puzzles and the elegance of the design, I think, is undeniable. And again, I just want more people to know about it. So I really encourage you to give them a go. I guarantee you will have a good time with it if you like logic puzzle games. If you only play shooters, this is obviously not going to be for you, but I hope that it has at least been interesting to see this whole kind of like quiet revolution going on in Sudoku. It reminds me a lot of how like chess has gone through like a whole revival the last few years as well. Anyway, again, down in the description, I've linked a bunch of puzzles. If you play a few of these and manage to solve them, definitely let me know in the comments. I would love to hear what you think, and thanks for watching.